Welcome, friends, and thank you for listening to another episode of the Optimal Health Program. Hope you're doing well. As you know, we're going to chat about a variety of things. Got some great articles and studies here to look at. Virtually every day I get on the computer to look for interesting stuff to talk about with patients. I put some of the articles, the abstract up on the doors that I have in cabinets for the exam room so people can see them, take pictures, and read. It's gotten to a point now where I may have to start putting them up on the back or the inside of the door. It's a nice visual because people like to see it and they see them reading the articles and really learning about it. Today we can talk about sleep apnea and how if it's untreated, it can double the risk of Parkinson's disease. Pretty scary, but true based upon a couple of studies. Another great article talking about having more muscle, less body fat may help to slow brain aging. All the things that we get to do on the way to more muscle and less body fat are great for blood flow, your heart. We'll add fine-tuning and perfecting vitamins, minerals, and hormones, getting heavy metals out of the picture. We'll talk about that. Another great study about the keto diet, helping with depression and decreasing the risk of depression. And even going back years, there was a movie called Lorenzo's Oil, and they were talking about using a specific oil that helped the young child with a metabolic problem. Here, with this study, the jury is out, according to them, not to me, about the keto diet helping with anxiety. It absolutely helps decrease anxiety because when you're doing low carb, you're not adding those sugars in that raise your blood sugar. You dump insulin, you drop your blood sugar down, and you become anxious. That doesn't happen with the keto diet. The low bad cholesterol may raise the risk of diabetes. Statin drugs increase the risk of diabetes, so that's not good. A spoonful of black cumin seed can help to lower cholesterol. So a lot of good articles to talk about today. So if you're ready, give us a text, a chat, a call, however you'd like to contact us. We'd love to chat with you. And we'll get your questions and your info up on the air.
And hello to LFA on this
That's
beautiful...
right. Our big, beautiful LFA. Gotta love our big, beautiful LFA. Thank you for watching. You're helping our numbers go through the roof. We've been hitting the 200,000 plus numbers on our Saturday show, so we're really excited. Tell your friends, family, everybody you can to listen to the program, and all of them are housed on YouTube, if I'm correct. So you can see all the prior shows, different topics, or as well, if you'd like to talk about something, you could either call us here or call us at the office, email me through the website, and we'll talk about your favorite topic. Let's talk about more muscle and less belly fat and body fat. This is a great study. It talks about research linking fat to increased risk for obviously heart disease, plaque, diabetes, the list of things, hypertension goes on and on. Now they're talking about it correlating with Alzheimer's disease and memory loss and dementia, brain aging. So we obviously want to keep the brain as young and functional as possible. So when too much fat's floating around, not only will it deposit in your liver, maybe your kidneys, in and around your heart, your blood vessels, any of your organs, can get to your brain and cause damage into the brain. If it's depositing and causing issues with blood flow and getting oxygen, vitamins, minerals, and hormones to the brain, that's also another way to affect the brain and your organs. So the more exercise you do, the more your body will burn the fat, the more you're going to deliver all those wonderful things to all your organs, flooding your cells with oxygen. If we're to look at fine-tuning and perfecting your vitamins, as we do, and your hormones, the benefit just increases dramatically. We've seen people that have tried to do the exercise and lose the weight and the visceral fat and all of that, and they say, I can't get there. I had a patient today. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just can't lose the weight. I can't get the results from the exercise I used to have a lot of energy. My muscles felt good. But of course, as hormone decline occurs, everything like that starts to change and goes away. So 1,164 healthy adults in the study, age 55. They did whole body MRI scans. They used AI to compare people to each other. And those who had the highest percentage of body fat had the most progression to brain-related changes and aging of the brain. So important to think of the significance of keeping the carbs down. Every diet that's been good for the body and every diet that's helped people lose weight over the past 30 or 40 years has been a low-carb diet. Burns down the sugar, burns the fat. The perfect mechanism for your body. And if you add in exercise, vitamins, correcting and perfecting hormones, etc., minerals, then your body will just go back to where it was. It's just the perfect mechanism to change the problems that you're having. And we see the triad, high cholesterol, overweight, high blood pressure all the time. And these are reversed by low carb, exercise, and correcting your vitamins and hormones. We do it all the time, every day.
Got a question here. Is aging itself caused partly by hormone depletion, or is hormone loss just a side effect of aging?
That's a great question. Some people might say, well, yeah, what happens? What comes first, the chicken or the egg? So the absolute with age-related changes initially starts with loss of new cell production. If you're a 15-year-old kid and you're making trillions of cells every second and you're dividing, you could run around like a lunatic, knock yourself out, play every sport you want to, run marathons, and your repair is so good because you're making 29 with 30 zeros after it, new cells every second. You're kind of invincible. But as you get older and you lose the new cells, you're also losing neurotransmitter production and hormone production. So it's cellular decline on top of the decline of hormones and neurotransmitters. That's the biggest part of that. Aging also inside your cells, telomeres. As your body snips off the end of the telomeres, your body ages faster. There are certain things that help to protect the telomeres. That would be important as well. Outside influence can damage your body and age your cells and your organs and your entire body much faster. Everyone sees people that smoke and they age faster because they're just putting all this damaging and stuff into their body. 4,000 chemicals made into cigarettes. Heavy metal exposure will damage your brain, damage all your organs. So there are a lot of things that we're exposed to from the outside that will hasten that process and make it worse. And as I say, exercise every day, great food, vitamins, minerals, drinking a lot of water, all the good things that you do are meant to keep your body healthy and strong. And once we look at this in your blood and we fine-tune those parameters and say, look, your cholesterol's normal now, it was 40 points too high before. And now your weight's down, and now your blood flow's better. Now you're sleeping better. All of these things you can see change over the course of this, protocol, this project. So that's what we're doing. Learn everything we can about you, would fine-tune everything and make it so your body's function like it was 10 or 15 years ago.
Someone's asking, are you saying there's a link between hormone decline and dementia risk?
Absolutely. This has been known for a long time because estrogen, progesterone decline in women when they go into menopause, and some go into menopause later, some earlier. If you keep your hormones longer and you go into menopause at 60, which is a little bit later than usual, those people typically have better brain ability and function. Their skin might be better because the hormones are still there. Their mood, their function, etc., is good and better with the hormones. If people have a hysterectomy for fibroids or whatever reason, and they're not taking the hormones drop earlier, they age faster, brain-wise and skin-wise and every other part of the body. So we do need all the hormones to function like we are when we have them there. So if you're 10 or 15 or 20 years in decline of those hormones, your body's changing for the worse, whether it's testosterone, DHEA, thyroid, IGF-1 or growth hormone. All of these things need to be in a good range. If we bring them back to where they were 10 or 15 years ago, you regain those benefits. So people who are tired, moody, achy, don't get good exercise result, their muscles just don't feel good, etc., and there are so many other symptoms, all of that returns when you bring them back to where they were, because that's where they should be. And you want your vitamin and hormone levels to be where you were, probably 10 or 15 years younger. The labs have a range on a blood test that, let's say between 40 and 50, 50 and 60, 60 and 70, 70 and 80, you're expecting those parameters, those hormones, and your vitamins to drop. But that's not a good place to be. You want to be back at a younger age with the better level of hormones to have more function. Same thing with your vitamins. So that's what we do when we put together this whole, program.
Oh, where'd I go? There I am. Someone's asking, my smartwatch tells me that my biological age of my heart is 4 years older than I am. What could I do to bring that down?
So I'm not going to say that one parameter on a watch is going to control everything, but I like the idea of the watches, the rings, and things, and we're incorporating this into the whole wellness and longevity program. We'll talk about that in a minute. To keep your heart young and functioning well, of course, you want exercise to be on board every day. Nice, comfortable exercise. You don't have to sprint or go crazy or run marathons. But if you walk for a half hour to 45 minutes every day, indoor bike, outdoor bike, you do some yoga, Pilates, go to the gym, any of these things, the more that you train your body to be fit and you train your body to open your blood flow to accept more nutrients and oxygen with that blood flow to all your organs, the better your body will do. So exercise is critically important. Vitamin levels, hormone levels, critically important for keeping your organs functioning well and young. Magnesium, potassium, of course, calcium, all the minerals are important for cardiac function, whether we talk about the heart muscle itself or talk about blood vessels. But it's a combination of things to do to make your heart more fit, to create gradually more stamina. You know, the average person, if you ask them to run a marathon, they couldn't do it because they haven't trained for it. And some people take months and months to train for a marathon. You know, yes, it's a young man's sport, you know, long distance running, but the reality is, like anything else, start gradually and improve a little bit, add a little bit more time for the exercise every week, document your benefits, etc., and you get there. You got to do it slowly but gradually, and then keep doing that for the rest of your life to keep your body healthy and strong.
People are asking about the smartwatches. Do you trust the data that comes out of them?
It's not as though I'm asking the smartwatch to give me data that's unreasonable. The smartwatches, I think, are good to tell what your pulse is doing. They're good for oxygenation, just like the rings are. And I think the rings might be a little bit better and easier to utilize. So they're giving you information that's important. Pulse, variation in pulse, oxygen, etc. Some of them will check sugar, temperature, and there are a variety. And there are $500, $600, $700 watches, which we're not likely going to recommend to everybody. Some of the watches that we've seen that work really well could be anywhere between $50 to $100. So sometimes those are fine. It may not be a designer Louis Vuitton watch, which some people might want to buy. And you could if you want, you know, why not? You can, and with this mechanism of remote patient monitoring, for a lot of the watches you might already have, there may be a way for us to hook that up to this mechanism so that we can track everything and, you know, make sure that all of your parameters are in perfect range. So whether you have your own smartwatch, we may be able to connect that. And there are many watches out there to try to look at or to buy, or the rings. So we get one that's appropriate for you, that fits for you, that can give us some good tracking of your vitals. And then we can show and prove how well you're doing.
Someone on YouTube said, is it normal that my Apple Watch judges me more than my wife does?
That's all you need on top of your wife judging you. The watch is going to judge you.
I had to turn my notifications off. It's like, isn't it time to get up? You should stretch your legs. I'm like, you don't tell me what to do.
That's great. I can see a Saturday Night Live skit, you know, coming out of that where the watch is yelling more than the wife is. That would be funny.
Back when Saturday Night Live was funny.
Yeah. I like the idea of people being reminded of certain things. And the funny thing that happened with the Fitbits and the watches and all, and counting your steps, and all the phones do that now anyway. People say, I'm only 6,000. I got to get to 7,000 or 10,000. And they have this idea, which is brilliant. They want to hit 10,000 steps a day, or they want to break this number of steps and get beyond and go further. I think it's great because it motivates you to do more activity, which is only good for your body. So if we could look at a variety of parameters and then set this up with you and then show you the benefits, that your blood pressure has been great every day for 3 months and your blood sugar's coming down, your weight's coming down, you can get off one of your blood pressure pills and we coordinate that with you. It's genius. Makes all the sense in the world. Soon there'll be devices that you can wear glasses and the sidebar of the glasses reads your brain speed. So it tells us if your brain is aging faster or it's doing well. There are devices to sit into that can electrically read your circulation, impedance, you know, tell percentage body fat. So, you could look at a variety of things. And if you're doing the exercise, you want to know, oh, wow, look, I've burned this many calories. I've lost this much weight, or my inches are shrinking down, you know. So the more you're guided with these parameters, the more you love it, the more you do it. It's just human nature.
So we got a few questions here, but real quick, I have to mention because I just saw this. There's this fitness app, Doc, that's called Strava, and it's for runners that go outside and they run, and it basically will show you different paths that runners take.
Sure.
Okay. So you can go check out this, the woods over here. There's a nice path, and it'll show how far people go and all that. What happened was a bunch of people in the military had them because they're very fit and they want to beat their own times and all that. But what they were doing is they would go on breaks and they'd run, but they'd be in like underground facilities that are not known to the public. So people were saying, "Oh wow, there's a trail right here," and they're going, and they found out that the U.S. Army unknowingly was basically showing the public where all their secret facilities underground were.
Wow.
And it was pinging up.
Wow.
How funny is that?
That wouldn't be too good of an idea.
Yeah, so no longer allowed for the military. So a couple things. Someone on YouTube, I see you, Gloria, said, is there research on eating well that can regulate hormones? I've read that mushrooms, shiitake, tofu regulate hormones, ?
They don't directly regulate them because your body has never needed, when it was created, hormones to mushrooms to make hormones. That being said, there are a lot of good antioxidant foods that when you bring them into your body decrease free radical damage, and free radical damage can damage the cells that make hormones or neurotransmitters. So when we talk about antioxidants, we want those to stop oxidation and stop damage to your cells. Hormones in part are made from protein and fat building blocks. Just like cholesterol, the pathway to make cholesterol includes CoQ10. So if you're blocking the pathway, you're blocking all your CoQ10 when you try to block the cholesterol. There are a lot of pathways that are involved, but you do want on your blood test to have great levels of vitamins, minerals, hormones, great proteins. If we talk about the fats that you're eating, you really want to have primarily olive oil, maybe fish oil. You don't want to have all the bad oils in your diet because that interferes with normal metabolism. You don't have too much sodium. So there are parameters that we want to watch and track when we look at your blood test. And then as you do this, your hormone production improves because of all the oxygen and all the great nutrients you're bringing to your cells and your tissues that make hormones. So yeah, those things will be better as a result of exercise and fine-tuning your diet. Also getting rid of heavy metals. That's another important part.
We got a question here asking the Italians, is there a difference between extra virgin and regular olive oil?
Extra virgin olive oil is better. I think it's more purified. It'll taste better. It won't have that biting aftertaste like so many of them do. And, looking at olive oil that I've had from my patients that have brought it back from all areas of Italy and Greece and Turkey and all over Europe, and just the taste of the pure extra virgin olive oil, cold pressed, first pressed, it's a whole different thing. You would likely never, ever go and get the supermarket type olive oil that's not really all or pure olive oil. Olive oil is not meant to be thick and sludgy, as some of these types are. And if you're reading labels on all the different olive oils, you'd be surprised what else is in there. Safflower and sunflower and who knows what else. So you have to pick and find the best sources. Of course, people that I know that go back and forth to Italy and Greece and these places, it's perfect. You're bringing it from there. There are two olive oils that I use that are made in Sicily. One is called Bono, like Sonny Bono, B-O-N-O. It's really good. It tastes delicious. And now it's getting into supermarkets like Stop and Shop and a lot of places. It's a really, really good olive oil. It's pure. Tastes great. Of course, it's from Sicily. Thank you. And Partana, P-A-R-T-A-N-N-A. And a lot of restaurants use both Bono and Partana, on their salads and with their foods. I think they use Partana a lot for cooking as well. So those are the two best that I've found. That being said, when I worked in the city, I used to go to a place called Fig and Olive. This was a place in meatpacking and also on 61st near Bloomingdale's. Their premise was, here are lots of appetizers you can get. So you can just have appetizers for your entire meal, which everybody that I know went there, and I would do it as well because you're tasting so many different things. It was terrific. You could have entrees too, but As you walked into the place, up on the wall, they had probably 40 different types of olive oil from all over the world. They had the best olive oil from Portugal called Picual, Picual. Portugal was Picual. Hoji Blanca was from Spain, Hojiblanca. They had them from Italy. They had Bono and they had Partana. They had some from Africa, from all over the place, any warm climate. So I would buy a bottle of each and, test them all and see which one I like the best.
Stay away from the ones in plastic in the grocery store.
Yeah, nothing in plastic.
Slightly different topic. Someone's wondering if you saw that RFK got rid of the HPV vaccine for children yesterday.
The hepatitis, absolutely. Absolutely. It's the greatest thing that I think he's done so far, because there's no reason, scientifically or medically, that a newborn needs to have an injection to protect them from a disease that is either passed through blood transfusion or sexual activity. It's just gouging on the part of the manufacturers to make everybody think, oh, babies have to have the hepatitis. It's wrong. And besides the fact the CDC covered this up, and this was in the news, that they think there's an 1,153% increase in risk of autism for using that injectable. So, very bad. Get rid of it. And same holds true for a lot of other things there. But this will all come out. More and more research, more and more information will come out. God bless him.
Oh, yeah. And, personal story, my wife, pregnant, she's in a bunch of these Facebook groups where it's other pregnant people. And after this happened, all these people were like, oh, like, what do you guys think of this? Like, are you going to get your kid vaccinated with hepatitis? And it was like an argument. People are fighting. They're like, well, and then someone actually said, a very based individual said, oh, 2020, trust the science. Everyone gets vaccinated. And then 2025, don't get your kid vaccinated. And
Right.
then everyone goes crazy. And someone responded like, yeah, but it's Trump now. It's just
Doesn't matter who it is. They don't have any testing on the vaccines, the safety testing. So that's a fact.
Yeah.
And look at the people who take lots of vaccines and boosters are getting sicker and sicker. We've seen that, and also in other countries. So you have to see what's happening in other countries, because you don't want to rely on just one type of mainstream media that may not be telling you the truth. Look at the populations of people that don't vaccinate, that don't have autism. Every time you hear about the absolute necessity to vaccinate over and over and over again, well, look at these people. They didn't, and they're healthy, and they don't have any of the disorders. They don't have the autism. The Amish. I mean, you can't deny that. So rather than being bulldozed into doing things that are dangerous and risky, and rather than them ignoring what should be a good informed consent, like if I wanted to do surgery on somebody, and I don't do surgery, but if I wanted to, the informed consent has to have the exact procedure, the steps, every step along the way, the risk, alternatives, benefits, everything. People are not being given an informed consent. Parents are not being told, well, this is a risk with this injectable or this vaccine. They're not being told. They're forcing it on people. It's wrong.
The brainwashing is truly incredible.
Yep.
That's another comment. Someone's wondering, is it that all are bad, or should we still be getting smallpox and things like that?
The question's there. When was the last time there was a smallpox outbreak?
And I don't even necessarily trust when there's like some article. It's like smallpox.
And also look at the flu vaccine, flu shots. Consistently, we've been told by the powers that be that, the flu shot didn't cover the bug that was here this year. So why use it? And why can't they put other things in the vaccines that are not aluminum and mercury? Get that out of your system. Don't put those things in. If you were to look online at a list of all the ingredients in vaccines, if you knew about it, you wouldn't take it. Why are we being stonewalled into doing things that may be dangerous? I remember reading the first couple of years where the Gardasil vaccine came out. I think there were 50 women, young girls, that died as a result of getting that vaccine. But that information was not, made public. No doctor's going to tell you that. So they're putting these things on board without enough significant, information and giving the parents the ability to make a decision. And yes, on Facebook and other areas, you see parents who say, my kids were fine until these, and every parent I've ever seen of a child that's got ASD and spectrum, they've all said the same thing. The child was fine until multiple injections. Yeah. And why do we need 70 injections? Explain that to me. Where these diseases don't exist, why do we need 70 injections? And why is it okay to give a baby 10 shots, right away? It just makes no sense to me. Yeah, show the science. There isn't. Show the proof. There isn't.
That's unbelievable. And I actually could remember, doctor, like I probably was 7 or 8 whenever I had gotten a vaccine, and that night I had the worst fever. And to this day, I've never had a fever that bad.
Yeah.
And all these parents, they say, the kid had a really bad fever and never recovered. It's just.
And it's not occasional. It's not here or there. It's a gigantic number of individuals. And the number of new cases is going crazy. It's skyrocketing. They say back in the 90s, there was 1 in 10,000 or 20,000. Now it's 1 in 30. How does this make any sense? And they keep saying, "Oh yeah, it's a genetic thing." It's not genetic. So,
and it's worse for boys, I believe, right?
Yeah, it appears to be. But read, learn, understand. Look at what McCullough's been saying. Look at what RFK Jr. is saying. Believe the right people. Don't believe the people that are making crazy money or forcing everyone to be vaccinated. Like Fauci,
Now it's 1 in 20. 1 in 20 boys.
1 in 20.
1 in 20 boys have autism, which is 3.4 times.
So how is it possible that 1 in 20 boys could have autism and have it be a genetic defect or a familial or it just doesn't make any sense?
Yeah.
Because since the 80s and 90s, those numbers have skyrocketed. You don't have these gene dysfunctions in the population where it affects all different backgrounds of people. Oh, no, don't look at those injections with all the bad stuff in it. It can't be that, right? Scary.
Terrifying. It says, it's 3.4 times more prevalent in boys than girls. Craziness. Chat's not happy. They said we still need to stop the chemtrails. That's next.
Well, they're aluminum in the chemtrails. They've discussed and proven that. A lot of people end up with aluminum exposure and they end up with dementia. We see it. The patients that have Alzheimer's that I see or that have dementia, when we do blood and then a urine, which is the most accurate test for metals, you see a lot of aluminum on board and many others. I've been saying the chemical companies have been killing us for years, some rapidly, some slowly. But they put chemicals into all sorts of things to enhance that product, but to damage our health. Talking about heavy metals in the brain, let's talk about Parkinson's. So Parkinson's is a very horrible disorder where the central part of your brain, the substantia nigra, is not making enough dopamine to have smooth fluid movement. And in Italy, when they did testing on people that passed away from Parkinson's, and they looked at their brain, they found that the substantia nigra was overwhelmed by heavy metal damage. Metals are 2 and 3 plus charge. They bind to receptors on cells like magnesium, potassium, calcium might, iron might, destroying the ability to get the minerals to get the cells to work right. So that's partially how that damage occurs. And they've linked the heavy metals with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, MS for many, many years, many, many thousands of studies, probably hundreds of thousands of studies. So in those studies, they were talking about the fact that glutathione is meant to protect your brain. It's a free radical scavenger, binding to a free radical, neutralizing it. But if you're overwhelmed with heavy metal exposure, you may not have enough glutathione to handle all that repetitive damage. There are people that have Parkinson's as a result of exposure to pesticides. Paraquat and some of the, I'm trying to think of some of the names of some of the pesticides, malathion, all those things. So that's been documented, just like Cadmium is linked with breast cancer, benzene, leukemia, all of these things. Carbon tetrachloride with liver cancer. But we need to look to see what bad things are in your system and get them out of your body. That's just common sense. And we do that for anybody who comes in that's got heavy metal exposure. You need to put the best foods, the best nutrients on board. We do the vitamin pack after we see your blood work. We perfect your vitamin recommendations. Get you on the vitamin pack. You take a pack at breakfast, pack for dinner. You're covered beautifully. We recheck your blood within a month. Now shows your vitamins are perfect. These are the things that we have to do. This study talks about untreated sleep apnea doubling the risk of Parkinson's, because if you don't get good deep REM sleep, then your body's not repairing itself and it's not recharging. It's not allowing for that state of sleep to be able to be relaxation for you, and your brain is not getting the repair that it needs. So that's why we talk about a variety of different things. Maximizing vitamins, minerals, pull out the heavy metals with the calcium-mediated chelation therapy and stem cell therapy. You're putting brand new cells in, they become brain cells, and they make the neurotransmitters again. So, again, very simple to understand and, extremely rewarding for people.
Can low-level exposure to heavy metals over years cause symptoms people might mistake for dementia or ADHD?
Absolutely. Like anything else, if there's a pebble in your shoe and it's there for a day, it may annoy you, but your skin's not going to change. But if it's there for weeks or months, you're going to get a callus around that spot, and now you have visual evidence of an inflammatory mechanism or some degeneration. If heavy metals come on board and they're overwhelming as a baby, then you're going to end up with ASD, and the metals are from the injectables. If you look at people that work in different populations, you'll see that they have more and progressive brain-related and organ-related changes because of more exposure to heavy metals. All they do is damage. There's no benefit to heavy metals at all. Minerals are different things. You need tons of those. Metals you don't need any of. And they're more damaging to your body than almost anything else. So also, a person who's got their knees a little bit sore, they're a runner. If they stop running, your immune might start to feel better. If you're still running a little bit and you're jogging or you're race walking, whatever, and you're still putting pressure on your knee, that wear and tear is going to make the knee worse over time. So it's like a wear and tear phenomenon. So yeah, the metals as they accumulate, and some accumulate a great deal over time, will cause damage everywhere, to your heart, lungs, liver, kidney, organ failure.
Someone just said that you convinced them to get a reverse osmosis filter in their house. The pipes won't get to me.
Exactly. Don't let those demon pipes affect you. Yeah, it's important to put that in on the water coming into your home. So every speck of water, showering, bathing, cooking, all of that, watering your vegetables is just pure, healthy water. You don't want anything else to come in there.
Are saunas a way to get metals out of your system?
No, there's no evidence that, infrared saunas or any kind of sauna is going to go and grab heavy metals from inside various cells, including the deep reservoir, which is your bone, and take them out of your body. The only evidence that we have, which is incontrovertible, is when you look at blood and you see some metals floating, they're free floating, they just came in. If you look at urine and see what's leaking out into the urine, 21 metals on that test, you can see what's kind of leaking out of storage. And if you do an IV that pulls the metals out, you'll see more come out into that urine. And if you do 10 of those IVs and repeat the urine at the 10th, you have your first IV urine, your 10th IV urine, you can see what's been pulled out. You can clearly see that, so that's proof. There's no proof with saunas, with spirulina, chlorella, zeolite, saunas, any of these other modalities, those foot pads or foot baths, there's no science to that whatsoever. Science needs to show something's there, something binds to it, something has come out with that. So that's the proof that you would need.
Someone's saying they're concerned from a few years ago when all the wildfires were coming out. Would there be metal in the air from things like that, or are there other issues?
There's a lot of garbage in the air, depending upon what's burning, I have friends that are firefighters, and when a house, goes on fire, they're worried about all the plastics and chemicals and arsenic-treated lumber. I mean, it's all bad. So let's talk about the term wildfire. Let's break it down.
Oh, I like this.
2 words, wild and fire. Does the word wildfire have any man-made or any letters in there suggesting it's man-made? No. So what happened in Canada and what happened in California were thought to believe that every time a fire happens, it's some nature or natural effect. But then they found people in California lighting fires. They had these big torch things that they were just setting fires. Or in Canada, you had 8 or 10 or 12 spots, and they did satellite imagery. They all had the same starting time and all had the same progression. It's not like one area was raging and the other were just starting, or one was raging and it flowed across to a whole forest and jumped across the road and blah, blah, blah. Then you have the man-made disaster in Maui, where houses that had blue roofs were not damaged at all. And sometimes you think that somebody wanted that land for their house and they wiped out that land but didn't affect Oprah's property or whoever else lives out there. So, and you could look this up online.
Obama's.
Yeah.
The Rock. They
all
all have
of that.
blue houses, blue roofs.
Look it up online. And even Biden in some comment was saying, yeah, all the houses that had blue roofs were fine. So I tend to think that that's probably some laser-based device on an airplane that would start those things. Zap, 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 zap. Now that you know what the government's capable of, and let me put that differently, what bad people in the government are capable of, then, you can't be surprised anymore.
Interesting. Someone put in the chat. I didn't know about this, but they said that blue is the standard color FEMA uses for emergency roof coverings.
It's interesting. Let's ask our listeners if they believe in conspiracy or not.
Well, I know our rumblers
Now,
do.
conspiracy theory is a term that's meant to make people think, oh, you're crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist, and you're nuts, and you'll believe anything. How many conspiracy theories have been proven to be true over time after enough research showed what really went on? A lot of them. A lot of them. And I tell people political conspiracies and political killing and political disastrous actions have been going on for thousands of years. There was a conspiracy to kill Caesar. Would someone say, oh, yeah, it's a conspiracy theory that the Senate and whoever else was there and Brutus, they killed him? Well, why would they do that? Well, they did it. We know that. There was a conspiracy theory, and the term really gained momentum when JFK was killed. And now if you look at all the literature and all the information that's come out, there's a great guy I follow on Instagram, JFK 60 Years Later, and he really brings out information that you would never know otherwise. And it's just completely obvious that the coordinated effort, and there were like 60 people that died around the Kennedy assassination, including mobsters and people that had knowledge. Look all this up. It was absolutely a concerted effort to get him out, to kill him and his brother. You can't be that naive and think, oh, yeah, a guy with a crappy little gun in the 6'4" book depository was such a marksman that he could shoot at a car moving away from him 3 bullets in 3 seconds. It's just not possible. We can do a whole show on the JFK assassination.
Oh, yeah.
We probably should.
We should. I think so.
Well, you know what? We'll ask the audience if they want to hear, because I have a lot of cool information on that.
Yeah. And to your point on conspiracy theory, they've pushed that term so much that like a lot of people don't even know what an actual conspiracy is. They just associate it to the theory. Oh, it's nonsense. Like
I've also said that if you want to do something bad, you figure out how to do that, but then you create this conspiracy theory thing to throw everybody off, to make everybody think, oh, you're crazy, conspiracy theory. Yeah. You have to realize that there are people in this world that are hungry for power that would do anything they could to be able to get the end result that they want, whether it's making money, controlling, and they would just do anything they can to create the end result they want. You can't think that everybody in the world's nice, everybody in the world's fair, everybody in the world's going to care about you, etc. People in power positions, in many cases, lose their minds, and that's why they do crazy things.
I see this one comment. It said, "What is that? The reverse osmosis? Reverse osmosis? How long is it necessary? Does 10 treatments do it?" We're not talking about a treatment, actually.
Yeah. So there are devices that are certified. One of the companies that does a great job at that is Culligan. Aquapure is another company, and you could even go to like Blackman Plumbing, which is a gigantic plumbing supply place, and can answer any plumbing question from here to Mars. And online, you could find out who makes the filters that you put on the water coming into your home. It'll triple filter the water through large canisters, so every speck of bacteria, virus, metals, anything impure is completely removed from the water. So you're getting essentially perfectly pure water. Nothing is as good as triple reverse osmosis filtration. Yes, some people might like to add on other things. Some people will shine ultraviolet into the water. Whether that does something, I don't know. I know the ultraviolet bulbs are used for the ducts in air conditioning and heating to kill bacteria and viruses. Makes sense to me. But you want to get all the bad things that could be in your water, especially if you live where you have a well water. And even if you don't, you got water coming in from the pipes coming from who knows where. Upstate, you don't know what you're getting. I tell everybody, get your water tested and see what's in it. Sometimes water is hard, sometimes it's soft, sometimes there are more chemicals that you don't want. Get your water tested and then get a reverse osmosis system.
We're getting some thumbs up for the JFK show, by the way.
What's that? Thumbs up?
Thumbs up for JFK show.
So I've looked at that inside out for a long time in every book I read. And there's an actually very interesting book by Jesse Ventura, as crazy as he may be, but I think he's more of a showman than crazy. I think he's a really smart guy. Navy SEAL, governor of wherever he was it Wisconsin or Minnesota?
Yeah, Minnesota.
But what he has described and documented with facts is pretty amazing as to, what transpired. So maybe we'll do a show on that.
And who knows, maybe we'll get a little moon landing in. I had a nice conversation with the doctor at dinner a few months ago on that.
Yep, moon landing show.
Might be maybe our year. When's our year?
December 13th, I think.
Oh, it's coming up.
Is that possible?
Maybe we should do that reunion, or anniversary.
Wow, should we do a JFK thing for our 1-year anniversary?
Oh. We'll discuss.
We might.
You'll know when you guys see the thumbnail pop up, all right?
Yep, we might. I think it's always fascinating. And some of my patients and some of my friends, just all agree. If you're analytic in any way, shape, or form, you'd have to agree that there's a possibility of these things. And once you start to see enough information and see who was pulling the strings and who had to gain from it and blah, 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 it's a no-brainer.
Someone in the chat said, pray over your water, too. You might need it.
Yep.
I have a humidifier in my apartment because it gets so dry. Mm-hmm. And I just took the tap water, filled it up, and then I'm like, you know what? It's like you could smell the chlorine popping up.
Yeah,
so now I filter it, and then I put it in because
you can get distilled water. Distilled water is probably better. Yeah. And also get those big triple HEPA filters that will filter every speck of air in this room 60 times an hour. So whatever allergens or dust or mold or whatever else gets stuck in this thick wadded filter. Anything that's bigger than 0.3 microns gets stuck in the filter. So it really traps all the bad stuff.
Got to get rid of the poison.
It takes work to keep your house and your home and your personal environment healthy. But it's the only body you got. You want to die young at a very old age. So you got to be as healthy as you
Oh,
can.
well said.
Yep.
Someone's talking about this. You must be from Long Island, talking about Grumman ruining our water.
Oh yeah.
Because that's a huge thing on Long Island where
That's been known for a big spill.
yeah.
And the aquifers, the underground, pollution, gas stations in some cases, I'm sure when they have leaks and those tanks go bad, all sorts of garbage goes in.
Yeah. They want the JFK show.
They do.
It's got to happen.
Okay. I'll put some notes together.
We love you, Rumble. And YouTube. I'm watching YouTube.
You love the whole gang.
What else we got? Talking about the blue roofs.
Let's go to our next
energy
little
weapons.
article. What do you got?
No, people are just talking about direct energy weapons. We're all over
yeah.
the place.
Look, people, you can't think that, like back in the 50s, everything is hunky-dory, apple pie, Chevrolet, whatever else. The other cool thing that I remember looking at was, Robert Byrd, Admiral Byrd, flew to South Antarctica and found an environment that was beyond the snow caps, and they had all sorts of stuff going on there and probably some military things. Yeah. Look and learn and read and make up your mind,
Yeah, and someone in the chat said, "How do you respond?" I don't know who this quote is from, but it says, "When you know the deck is loaded and you can't do anything about it, stay out of it. There are situations we learn to subordinate ourselves certain situations." Got a philosopher.
That's a smart comment, and probably it just makes me think, so quickly back to Charlie Kirk. He knew something was going on. It may be likely that people in his organization, didn't want him to continue or wanted to take over or are looking for power and wanted to get money from these outside places and sponsors, and Charlie didn't want it, and who knows what's beyond that. And I think what Candace has done is expose a lot of information that wasn't known before, like these Egyptian aircraft. If you follow her, you'll learn a great deal more than what you'll ever hear from mainstream. There's no way that kid up on a roof did that with that gun. It's just not possible. So you have to understand that things go on behind the scenes to create an outcome that's good for certain groups or certain people. And the more that I hear, that I see, the more you look at videos, the more you start to understand that you're not being told the right story. And honestly, it's a lot of the media not being told the right story. Whether we talk about foods and chemicals and colorings and dyes, all of this stuff.
Or 9/11.
The entirety of it, of course. I know people that are engineers that say that couldn't happen without the structure of the buildings being damaged by those angular welding cuts in the massive buildings. And look at the firemen videos. They heard bombs and things go off before the buildings fell. Firemen, that's their job. They know buildings in and out. They know the entire thing. So people have to, they say, wake up. People have to understand that it's not all as simple as they make you think it is. They're giving you a narrative that may not be true in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I always tell myself, if I'm ever going to be near any explosives, I'm just going to wrap myself in passport paper.
Yeah, right, because then you will not blow up. The passport will protect you to the ground, just like the passport of the terrorists. Everything blew up. The buildings were destroyed to nothing. I was on the pile the second, third, and fourth night.
Oh, wow.
Because my friends had construction companies, and I got a lot of pictures. My friends had construction companies, and we knew they didn't need doctors because you got 1 million doctors in the city of every type, and they were manning whatever hospital facilities. So it's a good story. So I went in with my friends. We had like 8 or 10 guys, and we're dying to go in and help somehow. We piled into cars, and we were dropped off at the Armory, which I don't know what street that's on, 30th, 40th. And then a fireman was driving down in his big old station wagon. And we jumped in and on that station wagon. He brought us right down into ground zero. We got hard hats. We got all the equipment, the orange vests, yellow big knee-high rubber boots and stuff. And we went over to this station where everybody was and there are commanders there going over what to do and charts and things like you might see in a movie. And when we got close to the area, there was all this stuff flying in the air. It was like paper and soot covered things. And we got to the site, you just stared and say, my God, where did the buildings go? How did these things compress into powder? How does that happen? You'd think a building would break and fall sideways a little bit or this or that, and you'd see big pieces of the building or rubble or beams and chairs or something. It was pulverized. All that we saw looking into the abyss where the buildings were was just twisted, melted, and destroyed metal. We're like, where's the whole building? It made no sense. And then every possible Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, every possible responder was there, and they were doing things. And I spoke with the Marines, and we followed them, and they went here. We climbed up on the top of the pile, and we were doing bucket brigade and taking down, gravel and pulverized stuff, and looking to see if we could find somebody in and under the beams, and you couldn't find anybody. And at one point, this horn goes off, and I don't know what the horn meant. I'm not a first responder person. I'm not in any of those, occupations. And all the guys run off the pile. Now, the pile's got to be 100 feet high. So we're on top of the pile digging. I'm like, what the hell was that? So myself and my other friend, Pete, we ran off that pile like rats,
Right.
running as
Is there an
fast as we
explosive?
could.
Like what? Yeah.
Well, we didn't know. I mean, they rang that horn because they thought another building was going to come down because some of the area was, part of the building was breaking. So we raced, and I'm telling you, I would have outrun any animal on earth, because when I hit the ground after I slid down and, you're running away, I ran across where Century 21 was. I must have ran 2 city blocks, full tilt.
Wow.
No stop. Then, of course, my heart was going to blow through my chest, so I had to slow down. I just laid down on the ground. I said, okay, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die. But I ran as hard as I could. My friend, came up. We sat there for a while like, oh, man, that was crazy. And, of course, everything was fine. Everybody goes back in the pile. I'm like, I hope they don't blow that horn again. At one point, I walked to where there was an opening, a hole. And I'm like, well, what's this? I looked in it, and I kind of slinked down into it. It was the first floor of the parking lot under one of the World Trade buildings. Wow. And I saw cars there. And I called some guys over that, do this for a living. Here I am sort of trying to figure out how to get down there without killing myself. But it was the first parking lot. And I called some of the guys. I think they were just FEMA and Marines and different guys there and cops. I walked over to them and said, hey, there's a hole, an opening, and it's the garage. It's the first garage because there are cars there. So they all came over, and these guys like swarmed on, jumped in, but diving in. It was like, I've never seen it. Meanwhile, I'm just gingerly trying to go down and to get in there without upsetting something or getting cut. But these guys went in. Of course, we didn't find anybody there, but all these cars were there and all this other stuff. But it was just wild.
Wow. I don't know how I haven't heard this one.
Yeah,
It's got a lot of stories.
I don't speak about it too much, but it's a real thing, and I've got pictures that document every bit of when I was there with my friends and looking at to show people what it looked like. There was at the Burger King on the corner, where Century 21 was here and the World Trade was here. On the other side of that was a Burger King, and that was sort of the command station, and all the head guys and generals and all these people were there and doing all sorts of stuff, and people walking over. What do you want me to do? And being told where to go and what to do. And there were groups of people, and I think there were EMTs and stuff just walking around with bottles of water. So you're drinking the water, you'd put it on your face because you had all this dust and dirt all over you, and it was made of every chemical or every component of what the buildings, were made of. They thought they found someone, but it was one of the firefighters who kind of slipped and they just brought him up out of a little bit of a hole, but he was fine. It was the most surreal thing I'd ever seen. And then there were a lot of really, really nice people that came down, and when they got to the barricade, they were let through because they were bringing in food for all the people that were workers. And I remember this big truck coming in, like a big van truck, and it was from one of the restaurants. and someone had drove it down, but the person sitting on the right-hand side of the street was Mariska Hargitay from Law and Order SVU.
Oh, yeah.
Dun dun. So she was there, and she's handing out, packaged food to everybody that was there. Really, really sweet. Terrific. So extremely impressive as to how these people were coming down, to help out. But it was just absolute chaos. Absolute, what the hell is going on? What's going to happen next? And, what do we do? But, and then, you had to change your clothes and get rid of all that stuff because who knows what you had on your clothes. You wore stuff that you could just throw away.
Were you wearing a mask?
Yeah. First night, they had, regular N95 masks. So not necessarily a great thing, but I just realized, put some Vaseline up your nose and whatever you can block from getting in, you blow your nose, the Vaseline takes the stuff that's stuck to the Vaseline so you don't, breathe it. And then later that night, a big truck came down with rebreather masks, the one with the double-sided, which were really the safest mask to wear. So everybody was wearing that. But it was hot as hell, so, we're sweating like dogs. Yeah, it was crazy. It was surreal. Wow. But,
it's the chat saying that the last fire from 9/11 was extinguished December 20th.
Yeah. Well, think of it. You had a massive hole in the ground, and it still doesn't make any sense to me that a 100-story building, compressed down into a hole in the ground that wasn't 100 stories down. I don't know how deep it was, but you saw a lot of wreckage, but everything was pulverized. Powder, dust.
Not a printer.
Yeah, nothing. Like, how does that happen? And how do all those beams, which you saw evidence of weirdness on the beams, and there are pictures of the beams being cut on an angle. I think that was a job that was done before September 11th, and whoever was maintaining the elevators or whoever got in was doing this stuff, made the building more susceptible to free fall. What building free falls like that? Only ones that are blown up in demolition. Look at Vegas where they blow up old casinos. Look at anywhere in the world where they blow up a building that falls in its own footprint. Think of it. It didn't, if it's 100 stories, none of it fell 30 feet to the right or to the left. It fell in its own footprint, which makes no sense at all.
Yeah, it would be more believable if it was like the Empire State Building, but they were literally steel beams all the way up and down. Every window cut.
Yep.
It's wild.
The structure was pretty amazing. But also, and I've spoken to different people about this, if you have jet fuel and it catches fire like gasoline, it doesn't linger and stay lit, dripping down beams to melt the beams. That's just not at all ever possible. Gasoline's the perfect example. You throw a match in gasoline, boom, it all burns up right away. You think jet fuel is going to sit there and not incinerate right away? Well, if you see a ball of explosion, that's the jet fuel. So how did those beams break down, fall over, melt, etc., without that jet fuel running down the columns, as they said? That's just the dumbest thing. They want you to believe anything. It's not possible. And when the firemen said in that video, and I've seen it 1,000 times, that when they got in there, they heard explosion after explosion after explosion. Those are detonations.
Yeah. There's even now people like been more clear looking at the footage, and you could see like as it's going down, the floors below are blowing out.
Things blowing out. Yep.
Blowing out. Yeah.
Also, Building 7 didn't get hit by anything. How did Building 7 fall in its own footprint? That's demolition. There was a comment that Rumsfeld made that trillions of dollars in that building or in whatever secure business was in that building was missing or something, and they think that that building was taken down to cover that. And the other thing that annoys me to no end, the Pentagon.
Oh, that was a missile.
So, and I've looked at a couple of different things, and someone recently said, hey, how come all the lights on these little skinny little poles all around the Pentagon were not taken out by a big, gigantic airplane and its wings?
Yeah.
And where's the hole from the airplane and its wings in the building? Where are the engines from the airplane? And where are the seats? Like you've seen Airplane crashes like Lockerbie in Scotland's a famous one. There are seats all over the place. Unfortunately, some people died in their seats, etc. And engines don't disintegrate.
Yeah.
So how come there's a big hole in the Pentagon but no other plane parts at all? Zero.
Speaking
How
of
does the
that,
plane go down in, Pennsylvania with no plane?
nothing.
There's a ditch. Where are the engines?
They put like an American Airlines like ticket on the floor.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, look.
So like a ticket and like the passport. So,
Yeah. And you mentioned the engine in Manhattan too. There was an engine that was on the floor and it was burnt up, and people looked at it and they were like, "Oh, well, this is a Pratt and Whitney
right,
engine," but the ones that were on that was a Rolls Royce. Like they didn't even have the right engine.
right.
Chat's loving this conversation.
So, be smart, people. Don't believe anybody. Don't, especially people that are in control of things that tend to make money off telling you things that you're questioning. Question everything. Be safe, eat right, exercise, do everything you can to learn, read, look, and just don't believe the garbage. Another interesting article, high levels of biomarker for the heart may correlate with dementia risk, up to 38% higher dementia risk when a test called troponin is elevated. It's an inflammatory marker. So it's interesting to see that the things that can cause issues with your heart, that doctors would use a troponin test to look at heart risk or heart degeneration, but they don't until this study, and maybe even many of them won't realize that you can do a troponin test, and that troponin test can tell you if that person has a higher risk for dementia because it's elevated, like C-reactive protein, higher brain change risk, homocysteine, higher rate of Alzheimer's and dementia risk. So there are other tests that are pointing towards the mechanism behind damaging not only your heart or your other organs, your brains, and elsewhere. So if you've had a lot of heart-related and maybe brain-related issues, then maybe you don't believe in conspiracy theories. So maybe that's possible.
Someone's just asking what is a troponin test?
Troponin is a blood test that looks for an inflammatory marker to see if your heart is becoming damaged or inflamed or weak. There's also BNP, B-natriuretic peptide, which is a protein in your blood, your heart cells, that if leaks out into your blood, it means that your heart cells are being damaged and they're leaking out their protein. Galectin's another marker for heart failure, so there are a bunch of them. But for me, it's curious to say, hey, look, let's check a person's entire cardiac risk with not only regular cholesterol, triglyceride, HDL, LDL, apolipoproteins. Let's look at the other things, homocysteine, fibrinogen, C-reactive protein, Lp(a), chylomicrons, the breakdown of the different HDLs, LDLs. Let's look at all of that. And in finding some of that, you might have a person that's going to develop dementia that you can change that risk for. And if you look at heavy metals and the heavy metal burden's high, get the metals out before that causes dementia or organ damage or failure. So,
side note, someone's saying in the chat, I went through a really scary experience just a couple weeks ago. Pain starting in my back spread to my heart and seemed to electrify my entire left side. I felt like I was being fried. It lasted 4 minutes.
Wow, that's weird. That could either be nerve root pressure in the middle of your back, because the middle of your back, those nerves go to your skin, your muscles, and your organs. So if it's between T1 and T5 or 6 thoracic vertebrae nerves, they innervate your heart. So if there's pressure on that nerve root, you could have horrible back pain or neurologic pain, but that also can make your heart have an irregular beat and give you some discomfort. So for you to feel pain in something weird like that, or like an electric effect, that it's got to be the nerve involvement.
And then follow up, in the last few weeks, I've felt dizzy, stumbling around, disoriented, so much more difficult to get around. And said a coronary?
So disoriented typically would correlate with either something metabolic or brain-related changes. So for patients that talk about that, we tell them to get an MRI of your brain, just to make sure there's nothing happening there, vascular or otherwise, or tumor or otherwise. Look at all your electrolytes, look at your cardiac markers, look at everything in your blood, and see why you're feeling that way.
Yeah, they're asking, could it be a coronary or a stroke?
Stroke would be that your brain is just not working right. You may have issues with balance, vision, smell, taste. Your tongue may not move correctly if you try to move it. These are some of the things that people are told to look for if you think your relative's having a stroke. Because if your tongue comes out and you can't move it left or right, or you can't move it left, that's a sign. So usually there's something more progressive that correlates with the stroke. But you've got to test because you want to make sure nothing's brewing. Because sometimes things will start off mild and all of a sudden will hit you hard. So any of those weird brain or heart-related symptoms, you have to have evaluated.
I could say from experience, you could ask, it's the smile test, One might go up, something like that.
Right, your face can droop, your vision, changes in your vision can black out, sense of smell, lightheadedness. There's so many different things that can correlate with a stroke.
Back to the 9/11, I think there was a bomb in parking garage on both towers. I've heard that.
I think there were multiple bombs.
Yeah.
Again, when the firemen who were there, and they know their stuff inside and out of every building, because that's what they train for and that's what they understand. If they said there were a lot of bombs going off, there are a lot of bombs going off, despite the ridiculous narrative.
Yeah.
And I don't think those buildings could free fall in any other way. It's just not possible.
Yeah, there were people that were in the basement. Like I think there was a Starbucks down there or something, and there was an explosion that blew out all the windows in the basement, and it was before the first plane even hit. So
May very well be. I wouldn't doubt it. You have to believe that things are allowed to happen for us to be able to get involved in a conflict. Anybody you talk to who's old enough to know about the war and the bombing of Pearl Harbor, anybody would say that they knew about it and they let that happen so we can get into the war. I mean, I've never heard anything to the contrary of that.
Yeah.
And our intelligence is the best intelligence in the world. So they believe that that's what happened. Same thing with 9/11, getting us into that battle, that skirmish. So, and who ends up with the better end of the stick? Halliburton, because it took over all the oil. Who ran Halliburton?
Oh,
a guy that just died.
Yeah, looking up at all of us.
Yeah. So, you have to, in a clear-minded way, look at things and say, well, why did this happen? Was this a real function? Was this allowed to happen? And who benefits the most from all this? It's not hard to look at things that way.
Is Larry Silverstein still alive? That was another one.
Yeah, I mean, he put all that money to in his insurance policy against terrorism, like months before, and he walked away with billions of dollars. Why do you randomly just load up on terrorism insurance?
Yeah.
Is there a thing? Like, could I get terrorism insurance for my house? No.
Well, now after the 9/11, I think you actually can, because that made everyone scared and added these new clauses.
Just get terrorism insurance against my dogs. So, also, if you're a president and you're sitting talking to kids in a classroom, right? And someone whispers into your ear, hey, Mr. President, they just blew up the Twin Towers in the city. They blew up the Pentagon. A plane ran into the Pentagon, and the plane was shot down over wherever in Pennsylvania. He nodded his head. You weren't, shocked? You could say, hey, the Martians have landed. They want to have peanut butter and jelly with you. You'd have to have some kind of response. You can't just say, and continue doing what you're doing. I mean, I would have been like, what the hell are you talking about?
All right, kids, class is over.
Yeah. I'm sure, like in all these other circumstances, there was foreknowledge and you knew it was going to go on.
We touched every
crazy. Oh, yeah, we'll bounce around. I don't care. We'll bounce around. What people want to talk about, we'll talk about.
People have also been mentioning in the chat, no blood on Charlie's shoes when they carried him to the car. They didn't apply medical aid to him on the floor.
There are so many components of that, and that angers me to no end because he was a nice guy. From everything that everybody knew about him said, he was a nice guy trying to do a good thing. And when you heard him, he was very polite. There's so much about that that's an absolute manipulated mechanism, and it was done in coordination with a lot of different people. So there was no ambulance at a gigantic crowd event.
That's insane.
One of his people said that there were drones there, and everybody saw drones up in the air. And one of the guys at Turning Point said, "Oh yeah, there were no drones. We didn't have drones there.
We weren't allowed."
Yeah, Charlie's guy said, "Oh yeah, there were drones there, and we were looking, through the crowd, etc." Then there's a kid who's making all these crazy motions before Charlie gets hit, and this is a kid that asked him the last question, and he was practicing on having this horrible response to Charlie getting shot. There's video on that. You can see it.
I saw that.
The guys around Charlie, one guy jumped across the desk, took something, put it in the guy's pocket. The guy leaves. Mikey, the kid who's supposed to be his manager or whatever, he sits there. Charlie gets hit. He's on the phone without dialing the phone, so he was already on the phone, did not dial the phone, and walks away. You don't go and help your buddy?
Or take cover, something?
Yeah. You hear a gunshot, and everybody else is surprised. They fall down. They're scared. This guy just puts his hand with his phone up to his ear and walks away. And his father, and I don't believe these pastor people, I think that's a cover. There's another story to talk about that.
And they're all in the military.
Said that he was a hero. He was covered in blood. And it wasn't covered in blood. It didn't go near Charlie. And the other guy, Frank Turek, with the white hat and the white shirt, was talking about he looked into Charlie's eyes and knew he was already with Jesus. I'm like, you weren't near him. He got shot. He went down, and Turek ran behind the tent and was nowhere near him. So all these people, lied, and the visual evidence shows that they did that. So, and now this thing that Candace found out about, these Egyptian planes that were tracking and following, they think they were following Erica, not only Charlie. There's all of this stuff going on. It's all going to come out. But when all these crazy things are happening that don't make any sense, they didn't, clear out the crime zone, crime scene. They allowed the guy to take the card out of the camera and all this other stuff.
They paved over it with cement in a day and a half.
Yep. That's all covering. There's no conspiracy. That's all covering up a crime. In many ways they did that. And many people were complicit in that. And I think it's gonna show. I also don't see how a widow doesn't have real tears. And you're wiping your eye with, a napkin or something, and there's no tear there. I don't believe it.
It's too much.
Yep. I'd rather be the person who doesn't believe anything until it's proven, which is what I do anyway in my practice, Person says, "Oh, my thyroid's bad." And "Oh, no, your thyroid's good. It's your adrenals that are low. It's or this that's off." I need proof to show me what's real. But there's no proof in those things, so a lot of it I think was just created. It's a shame, but there are people out there who do anything to control all the new voters that Charlie brought to the table. Hundreds of millions of people all over the place that loved him and what he was doing. So it also may be that the people that were in that company that he worked with and created, if he weren't there, now they've got their chance at controlling all that money.
Yeah.
You got to understand this, people. There are people out there who don't care about getting rid of somebody else if they can step into power and control all the money and control all the minds and make everybody love this or that faction. So it is what it is. What were we talking about?
Metals and the brain.
The conspiracy show.
Yes. Yeah, we love our rumblers.
Other good comments on another article, the LDL cholesterol, if it's lowered too much by statins, increases the risk of diabetes. And statins increase the risk of type 2 diabetes.
Statins are evil, I'm convinced.
Yep, but companies made them. So back in the day when cholesterol was thought to be a risk and homocysteine was thought to be a risk, there was a guy named Kilmer McCulley, a doctor in Harvard, Providence area. I think it was at Brigham and Women's Hospital. He found out that homocysteine caused plaque as much or maybe was worse for your blood vessels than cholesterol. Because there are people all over the world with very high cholesterol and no plaque, like all over Italy, France, whatever. So his research showed that you can wipe out the homocysteine with B6, B12, and folic acid. Great. he was not able to go any further with his research because it wasn't going to make any money for a drug company, because all you could use were non-patentable vitamins. And then cholesterol became the big thing, and when they realized they could make drugs for it, and they've made $1 trillion industry of it, cholesterol was the only enemy or culprit. So they were putting everybody they want to put on cholesterol meds, despite the bad outcome from cholesterol meds. So that's how that was controlled.
Someone wants to know, can stem cell therapy be patented? Hopefully not.
You can't
Unless you got the
patent
patent.
a naturally occurring thing. So if we take your bone marrow, spin it, and put it back in your body to create a result, you can't patent that. Can you patent a technique or a protocol? Maybe. Can you register a protocol because it's different and teach people how to do that protocol? Maybe. I'm not a patent attorney, far from it, but I think there's certain components that if you do and you do uniquely, you could probably patent it. But honestly, patent's not what it used to be. Someone else could come along with $1 billion company and say, oh yeah, I like that, I'm going to knock it off. And then they win because they can battle legally forever. And they'll just knock off your thing. And if they get fined, it doesn't matter.
Someone said, keep it away from Pfizer, please.
It's funny, people say, oh, Pfizer's been around for so many years and it hasn't cured a thing. Nobody in that business wants to cure anything. They want you on meds forever. They want you on 10, 15 meds forever. So the cure thing is not what's ever envisioned, although they may like to say that. It's not about a cure. It's about maintaining people on meds, etc.
All right. Chat. Anything else? They're still on Charlie, but
They're still on Charlie, and should be. I mean, honestly, I applaud people for being horrified and upset about this, because they should be, and talking about it and thinking about it, and I like the idea of people doing nice things in his memory, tributes. I like the fact that a lot of people are getting back to church because of his discussions and his desire to teach people about church and religion and Catholicism and Jesus, etc. I think church and good thoughts and religion are a great moral compass, and people will tend to be more appropriate, more moral when it comes to having faith and the ability to understand and respect other people. Of course, that doesn't occur with other religions, where if you're the bad guy, you're the infidel, they want to kill you, and they can kill you. It's just makes no sense. The good old days.
it's getting worse, Doc.
We can grab a few more questions if people have, and tell us what topics you want to hear about.
Let's call it the last call, guys. Get them in.
Yep.
Love what Candace is doing. Thank you for spreading the truth.
To me, when I hear what... Go ahead.
Someone said you are based, which just means you get it.
Awesome. I like what she's doing, and the more that I read and I hear, just like with everything else that I read and I look and I learn about, whether it's injectables or drugs or bad drugs or a yogurt company putting chemicals into a yogurt that could affect your hormone balance. We spoke about this the other day. The more that I think about this, the more that you see that there are bad things that are going on all the time, and people do these things because they want to make money from it, And they have an agenda, and bad things come from bad people's agenda. And what Candace has done, and she's grandstanding a little bit, but, she has the right to. She was a good friend of Charlie's. The more information she brings out, the better. And maybe someone will come to justice as a result of this. You're curious to see what they do with that kid, because there's no way that kid had anything to do with it.
No way.
And maybe they'll find him not guilty because there's not enough evidence, because there's not. And you can't tell me someone would take a rifle, dismantle it, carry it, put it back together, have a clean, accurate shot, which you couldn't after you dismantle a rifle. You'd have to test it and, for accuracy again and sight it in, and then take it apart and then put it back together and put it in the woods. It's just stupid.
Yeah. And someone's saying, I can't believe that this assassination has created such a split in the conservative movement. You would think everyone would want the answers.
Yeah, that's really weird too. I've thought about that.
Yeah, a lot of infighting, as we say.
I've thought about that because there are two types of people, people that want to hear the truth and want to know and want to protect and understand, and other people who just don't. They don't care. I could see people on the other side of the realm that were opposing what Charlie was doing because it was getting lots of followers for the conservative movement and the church movement, and they didn't like him because of what he did. But there's nothing to hate about a person who is doing something in good conscience for good reason. But there are people who hate that.
Yeah, and I see on YouTube someone said, I don't know what we've been all over the place, so I don't know exactly what we were talking about for this comment, but someone said, it makes me feel like exercising again. I can't even, it's too many things we could.
Yes, and exercise, you've got to do your exercise because you want to bring lots of oxygen, vitamins, minerals, and hormones to all your tissues. At the very least, do a half hour to 45 minutes of something every day. Could be a stroll, could be a walk, could be a jog, could be a half jog, half walk, whatever you want to do. A half hour at least every day of something.
And someone said, I've had about 8 chelation treatments and will soon come back for more.
Good. Remember, you want to do urine for metals with one of your chelations to see how much metal's coming out from the chelation, and then to compare it to your first urine test to see how much you've removed. That's the key. You want to prove that you're getting all those things out of the picture.
We're up to date.
Good. Very good.
Great show.
Good stuff. As I say, we can talk about anything, and we usually do. But yeah, it's kind of geared on what you're asking. I mean, I love it. So we can talk about anything. I have no problem. But I'll start to sharpen my info on JFK so we can talk about that. You want me to give you a little tidbit?
Let's do it. He can't help himself.
Of course, when you're president and there are people wanting to be in your spot, you'll have enemies. And if you're a dynamic, young, great president and you're doing good things, some of those things may affect people that have other businesses. And if their business is thriving and then it starts to change by some of the things that you're doing, then, there are more enemies. If you're a group of people who helped the election flip to your side because your dad was a bootlegger and a heavily mob-related guy, Joe Kennedy, and the mob helped him win. He didn't win by a crazy amount of votes, right? 100,000 votes, I think it was.
Something like that.
And then you start to go after people that are in the mob. They're not going to be happy, so they may have made a lot of enemies there. But the person who wanted him to be out of that position was the next person in line. There's just no doubt about that. I don't understand why people can't think of that. Oh, yeah, he wanted that spot. Big ego, crazy guy. There's lots of evidence he'd walk around the White House naked and do all sorts of crazy things. That's written in books from people who were there at the time. There's a good book called On the President's Secret Service, and they talk about each of the presidents and their wives, who was nice, who was nasty, whatever. Good book. I read it. So, that being said, there were different people that had different reasons to want him out of there. There was an assassination attempt somewhere in Michigan early on, but it was never heard of. And then in Florida, there was another supposed assassination attempt that either was thwarted or didn't happen. So if you look at
JFK?
If you look at what would normally have happened, he would have been in the car with some sort of plastic bulletproof device on it. And that was removed. And the route that was driven from the airport was changed the last minute to go right into that zone of where he went, which was a perfect area of articulation of attack. The car slowed down to 5 miles an hour as it was getting on the ramp of the parkway. This is all fact. Why would you slow down if you're getting on the parkway? Number one. Number two. There are pictures and a video of Secret Servicemen. You're supposed to ride on the rails on the side, the running boards of the limo, to protect the president. They were called off the limo. And one guy raised his hands like, what do you mean? That's protocol. There's supposed to be 2 motorcycles in front, 2 motorcycles in the back, and 2 motorcycles on each side. Those were all taken away. So there was access to the president. If you were a shooter that was meant to be the only shooter, when you're driving towards the bookstore depository and making that left, you're not shooting at a car going away from you because you have less ability to be accurate with something going away. If that car is coming towards the bookstore depository, right as it makes the left, you can't turn right or left and get away fast enough, so you're sort of a sitting duck. So if right before you make that turn, if shots were fired, you have a lot of time to shoot, and the driver's going to try to turn around at 3. Yeah, so any sniper would know that that would have been a better spot. What I looked at, and I have told people, and nobody else commented on it, and since I've never seen anybody comment on it, the bullet that hit Kennedy supposedly went through him and hit Connolly and lodged in Connolly's wrist or his knee or something. Now, what angle would that bullet have had to travel if it was going to do that at a relatively flat, plane level? How high is 6 stories? 120 feet?
Ish, yeah.
How does a bullet up here from a crappy old gun that really couldn't have done that shot come down and then flatten out to be able to take that trajectory? It's just not possible. And I know because I stood there and I looked at this when I first went there many years ago. I said, wow, there's a 6th floor. Here's where they were shot. There's a mark on the street. That's such an angle that that shot goes downward. It's not going to do this and zigzag and do that. Another fact. So none of that, and just in that part, doesn't make any sense. Of course, if you're shot from the back, it's a different movement than if you're shot from the front. If you're shot from the front right, your head goes back and is pushed to the left, just like in the movie, the JFK movie. So that's a fact. That's not, arguable. The crappy old gun that they used was not a military fine-tuned weapon. And think of it. If you have so many seconds to be able to take some shots, and you were alone, you'd shoot at them coming towards you. If it was coordinated, then you'd have different shooters at different places, which they had. When you're sitting there and you're trying to aim that rifle, and it's a bolt-action rifle, not a semi-automatic where you just pull the trigger. If it were semi-automatic like today's weapons, bang, bang, bang. There's no delay between. You don't have to chamber another round. So if the shot is taken and the gun bucks, which it always will, you know how long it takes to get back down and get on the right side of a moving target? That's not easy. Even a seasoned person would have a hard time doing that. Even if you're trying to lay the gun on a rest or on the windowsill, which they didn't, but were on the boxes. So bang, gun comes up, takes more than a few seconds to go back down, chamber, put another bullet in it, bang, and again. It's impossible. No way. And there are people that tried to do that were snipers back in the day. When they tried to recreate it, they couldn't recreate it. So there were likely probably 4 different places where shooters were. Grassy Knoll, of course, because everybody looked and ran towards it, the puff of smoke, etc. There was probably a guy under the tunnel, and there may have been a guy in the Hunt building behind and a little bit further off the side to the bookstore depository. So it's likely that Oswald didn't make those shots because just by bullet trajectory and angle, it's just virtually impossible. And you couldn't get those shots off that fast. So they get him, and again, the car slows down getting on the parkway when they're pulling him to the right, gunfire shot. They get him to the hospital. They bring him onto the stretcher. And you clearly know when someone's head is like that, there's no chance of survival. They find a bullet on the stretcher, right?
Yeah, untouched.
To make believe this pristine, unfired bullet is the thing that did all the damage. How?
Still a firing pin in it.
You know that when a bullet hits bone, it fragments. So any bullet that hits anything that's firm, mushrooms, etc. So it couldn't have been, but they tried to make that the magic bullet. It's just not possible. That's just blatant. And the poor guy is there. He's been dead, since he was shot, because you're not going to survive, at all from that shot. And they're working him up, and they're looking at different things. And all the surgeons that were there documented the back was the blowout, handwritten notes by different doctors, an entry wound here, which is a small, non-jagged entry wound at Dallas that was made to look like an exit wound being shot from the back to make it look like Oswald shot from the back, and it came out that way. And maybe that was the one that was the magic bullet that was on the stretcher. So it's all nonsense, all garbage. So they tried to make a front shot look like it was a back shot. Now there was a bullet hole in the windshield. So somebody shot maybe from under the overpass and hit there, and that's the first time you see him leaning over. So that makes a great deal more sense. So then they have his body in a wooden casket, and I forget the name of the mortuary. There's a video on this that describes the mortuary, and they had to get the casket over there, and then it was, had fluids in it and stuff, They put his body or wrapped him, and wrapped his head in a white plastic wrapping, and then they're fighting as to what to do and bring him here, bring him there. So they get him out, they get him onto the plane. And when they get off the plane, it's a totally different casket. It's a bronze metal casket. And when they bring him into Bethesda and they're doing the autopsy and the examinations, it's an exit wound here, not an entrance wound that's been written by the doctors and surgeons in Parkland. So they change that wound. They try to make it look like it was shot from the back towards the front. So they tried to cover that up, and, they're, kind of using, some sort of paste or something to make it look like that was still intact. And all that happened on the plane. So that was coordinated on the plane by, I'm sure, the vice president and probably the CIA. So he gets off the plane in a completely different casket. He's in a completely different wrap. So now he's in a body bag, like a green body bag. And whatever wrap was around his head was a different color. So he was worked on the plane. So that's what, the evidence has described. The list goes on and on and on of all these things that are completely, inconsistent.
Someone in the chat's asking, do you think that the driver shot?
No, because there's no evidence, and the driver may have turned, but there's no evidence of recoil of a gun or a device, and that gun could not have made the head on the right side go back into the left. And like I say, there's a guy on, I don't know his name, but it's JFK 60 Years or the first 60 Years or something, who has tons of videos, and he denies the driver shooting because of that specific. You couldn't shoot and hit the right side of the head and push him to that side when the driver's over here. So it's just kind of a crazy idea. But there's so much more. In Jesse Ventura's book, there's 63 different things that are documented to show that it was created to have that outcome.
Crazy.
So, endlessly fascinating. But, people say, oh, I don't want them to know any of my this or that, and I'm trying to, block. I'm like, if they want information, they'll get the information. You have no way to control how they know every single thing that you do, every purchase you make, where you go every day. If they want info, they've got it.
And it's only gotten worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the way it is. There's a lot of good in the world. There's a lot of evil in the world. So I'm trying to think of the other things that were specific to his assassination.
We got to save some for our.
Oh, yeah. And then the number of people killed around the entire thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like 40, 50, or 60 people. There was a woman who was on a talk show, and older people might know this. She was on What's My Line, and she was a columnist. And she was killed in some strange circumstance because she was going to publish what she knew about the Kennedy assassination, and they had her killed. Oswald worked in New Orleans in the same building that some of the generals worked in the CIA. It's all sorts of crazy stuff. David Ferry and the Cuban thing. I mean, it's just all interconnected and very strange, that you wouldn't normally see any of that. Carlos Marcello was a mob guy. Jack Ruby was a mob guy, and he owned strip clubs, and Jack Ruby was told to go kill Oswald so that he couldn't talk anymore and blah, blah, blah. When someone who's accused of doing something is killed right away, they didn't do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Someone else kills them so that they can't say that they didn't do it. But endlessly fascinating.
Didn't he even say, he's like, I
I'm
didn't
a
do
patsy.
it. I'm looking
Yep.
forward to,
They didn't give him any his rights. There's no record of him discussing what he said when he was arrested. They just framed him and 1, 2, 3. So, yeah, I'll dig up some more good info.
Love it.
Wonderful. So, people, thank you for listening in. God bless you all. Have an amazing day. Yeah, just give us a little note if you want me to talk about something, or if you find, as a lot of my patients do, find a good article on something.
Yeah, and write it if you're watching this on the replay, throw it in the comments section.
Yeah, for years of doing the radio show, 36 years of radio, people would either call in or they'd send me a great article, this and that, so it's fun. People like to get involved. We like that. Alrighty. Thank you all. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. We'll be back on again next week. Tell your friends, your family members. Give us the call at the office, 516-794-0404. Website, drcalapai.com. Within the next week, we should have 2 or 3 more landing pages coming up about the wellness longevity program we're doing with Medicare patients, where we're doing remote patient monitoring, correcting vitamins, minerals, hormones, all of that, Medicare covered. We accept Medicare for your visits. The labs will do the blood work through Medicare. There are things that aren't covered by Medicare, vitamins, NAD, Somorelin, vitamin IV stem cell that obviously you have access to. For non-Medicare, the Healthy Stay Strong, Grow Strong program, similar, where we're doing the RPM with either the ring or the watch or the tracking technologies, and again, correcting your hormones and NAD and the peptides and all. So a lot of good stuff we're coming up with.